hang on to that. Get the mortars out of the way. Fun. We'll just leave them on that box, it'll be fine. There's the back. You just keep with me. You keep with me, and I'll tell you as we go along. Right, we'll begin more or less now. One of the strange things about doing firework displays is that, of course, we are almost anonymous. We set the fireworks off in the darkness and we don't see anybody. We don't see the organisers, and they don't come and tell us what they thought about it when the display is over either. In fact, we seem to go there and do our own little thing and go away, and we don't even see the fireworks very often because we're so busy lighting them we haven't time to look at them. So, in fact, this is perhaps one of the less satisfactory sides of it.
Ronald Lancaster, master firework maker and theoretician, is a teacher of chemistry and divinity at an independent school near Huntingdon, sumptuously housed in a country mansion remodelled by Sir John Vanbrugh.
I think when I was a student, and perhaps before I was ordained, I'd no idea, certainly, of becoming a schoolmaster. When I was at school, I intended to read medicine. And then I decided in the sixth form to be ordained, but I don't really think I'd ever any thoughts of being a school chaplain, really. I just imagined that I'd end up as a parish priest or something like that. But having been here 13 years, it looks as though perhaps I shall be here for quite a while yet.
Only a few yards from the school gates is the Lancaster family home, and similarly near at hand are the work buildings and explosive magazines, one of which is being moved to a new site because of some school rebuilding.
The expenditure is, in fact, everybody's nightmare, really, if you're thinking of starting fireworks. You can't just suddenly say that it would be a nice thing to start storing and selling fireworks, unless you're dealing in small quantities. One of those big steel magazines is going to cost something like £700 or £800, and so if you have 3 of them, you will then have a capital outlay of between £2,000 and £3,000 just to begin with. That's just for somewhere to put them. The fact that we've had to be just a little bit commercial about the fireworks was primarily because the capital expenditure made it such that in time it was quite necessary to have an income in order to exist. It was one thing to do research, as I did originally, and perhaps make a few fireworks to try and make certain kinds of discoveries about fireworks and then burn the things and set them off. But eventually somebody has to pay for this, and it became a very expensive hobby. So obviously in time we had to get ourselves an income of some kind by doing some firework displays. And so that's really how we came to be, in a sense, a kind of very small business. You've got 2 kinds of compartments in this particular license. One compartment is for sulfur compositions, and this particular compartment is for chlorate compositions, and sulfur and chlorate must never be mixed together. It's not allowed. And of course you have to wear overshoes in your work buildings so that you don't get the grit from the outside into the building and cause trouble that way. And all factories have to have their own special rules, and so our special rules are on the wall here. It says that you're not allowed to smoke in the factory and that you're not allowed to bring intoxicating liquor into the factory, and various regulations which make good sense in the safe running of a factory where you've got explosive materials. Firework materials are not made to specifications in the same way that many commercial products are made. In fact, one of the biggest problems that any amateur firework maker would have to deal with would be to create consistency of effect from commercial materials. So in that sense then, as a piece of chemistry and a little touch of experience and perhaps a dab of magic here and there, you have to, in fact, know how to create the kind of things that you want. And even then, we still get surprises occasionally when perfectly normal mixtures don't seem to behave in quite the way that they ought to do. So that's the nature of fireworks, really, in the sense that you need quite a bit of experience. That's the first thing that makes it interesting. Secondly, there are several possibilities that you can achieve in fireworks, and there are several ways of going about achieving those possibilities, and therefore you find yourself constantly modifying what you're doing in order to achieve the effects that you want to achieve. My own ground very much is the experimental side. Certainly, I'm interested in the aesthetic side and creating something which is pleasant to see, or creating a big firework display. But the sad truth is that so often one doesn't have that opportunity. I think this year with the Queen's Jubilee, there will be some big firework displays, and we shall be required to produce something of this nature, but we don't often have the opportunity. This is the blunt truth of it. This is a mine, or in the firework industry it's sometimes called a bag. It's really nothing more than a bag of gunpowder and stars, and when it's fired out of the appropriate tube, it produces a column of stars or serpents or whatever you may like to put in it from ground level upwards. So in the bottom of this tube we're going to put a bag of gunpowder which is tied onto a long fuse here, and then there's a little disc on the top of it to push the stars out. This is placed in the mortar here and pushed right down, and we use another tube to make sure that we've got the thing pushed right down to the bottom of the tube like this. And then here are the little serpents. These are gold or silver squibs which come out and they wiggle around in the air. And we've got to stack these in the bottom of this mine so that we've got them completely filling it. And then when we've got them all stacked, we're going to put blue stars on the top, so that in effect it'll burn blue to start with, and then there will be lots of gold stars, gold serpents and things coming out from the bottom. We put in a handful or two of blue stars. These are green in colour, but they actually burn blue, and they go on the top. Put a few more, so that when the bag bursts, the blue stars go up and then the gold serpents are underneath. So we have to close the paper up then, and then put a clove hitch knot across the top and tie it up so that it's now closed. And then just, well, perhaps before we put the rubber band on, just to put the fuse in a fairly neat state like that to go into the store, perhaps we ought to show the tube that it's fired out of. So we get this large black plastic tube here, and that goes to the bottom of it, so that when we light it, we pull off this fuse cover. There's the fuse underneath. We light that, goes down, and the whole thing explodes, and this great column of stars come up. Here is another type of shell which is complete and ready now for the firing tube, and this is in fact a 7-shot repeating bomb. So it's exactly the same pattern. There's the long cylinder inside, there's the time fuse, and in fact you have on the bottom of the shell now the lifting charge of gunpowder which will blow it in the air. There's also something else here. There is here a very thick felt wad which takes some of the concussion when the thing fires. We had 2 displays last November which were large financially. One of them was in a very well-known football ground in the Midlands. The first difficulty was that whilst we had enough money, we couldn't use our biggest bombs which are, we consider, to be the best things that we make. Because anybody sitting more than halfway up the stands in the football ground wouldn't be able to see the bombs because they go too high. So there we had the money, but we still couldn't do what we wanted to do with it. If you are going to create a firework display where you have the right kind of financial support to do it, then certainly that adds another dimension to what you're doing. And so, in a sense, it is artistic, it is creative, and you are producing something which is, it's almost like a piece of stage management, really, with the production of any kind of play or show or anything else. And so that's also quite an interest, really. And all these things added together, I suppose, create some of that general interest, which really is building up over a period of time to a kind of skill, really.
I think I'm a bit vague at the moment. You've got the scissors. It's not driven in yet, the stake.
I started my interest in fireworks as a boy because I don't know what it was about the fireworks that were sold in my childhood, and particularly the fireworks that were marketed by the Huddersfield firms, but there was this kind of approach in the names and the labels which fascinated me, and I can remember that fireworks seemed in my childhood to be much larger, and they had much more exciting labels. There was a sort of magical touch about them. They had all these kind of labels and names which one associated with the sort of fairy tale land of being a very small child. When I bought them from the shops, I used to like to sort of fetch them out every night and sort of look at them and play with them, really. I can remember at times at home them getting quite cross about it, saying, if you don't stop playing with those, we'll throw them on the fire. Something like that. But there was something about it which seemed to appeal. And you think now about the attitude towards fireworks and the way some of what I can only call the anti-firework brigade talk about fireworks today, it's almost indecent now to suggest that a child should even be allowed to touch a firework. Whereas in my childhood, people didn't talk like that, and I don't think really people got so wild and excited about the kind of accidents that happen to children as they're doing now. I'm not sure that the anti-firework brigade are not overstating their case.
That's a nice, yes, it's very good. Rosier next. Steve! Right, your ignition then, Steve. Sightless, Roy. Sightless. Then it's the... Then, after Chameleon, it's the battle. It's you next, Steve. Are you in trouble? Oh, look at that. My God. Steve? Steve! Your ignition is next. You've got an electric ignition after this. Sorry to rush you. One of those has blown up. Yes, did they? Oh, not to worry. So your ignition, you have an electric ignition now.
There is a great deal of satisfaction in knowing that you have given people a lot of pleasure out of watching them, because invariably a lot of people do come and speak to us before or afterwards and tell us what they think about it. Though sometimes those results are very surprising. For instance, you might set off a most beautiful and spectacular bomb which has taken a long time and perhaps a lot of money to make. And when some little boy comes to you at the end of the firework display to tell you what he thought about it, you sometimes find that it isn't that caught his eye at all. He's perhaps completely absorbed by the fact that you had something at the end of the evening which said good night in fireworks. And that in many ways is the most primitive and dull and boring thing that we do, really. And yet it might be the thing which has caught his eye and which he thinks is the most interesting aspect of it. In fact, there are some things which we do which we think are very clever indeed and seem to make no impression on the public at all, which is a great shame, really.
Well, I think you'll agree with me, ladies and gentlemen, that was a truly magnificent display and greatly presented too.